I enlisted in the Marines about 2 months after I'd became a permanent resident in the United States. After my dad died and before I went to Iraq, his brother Eamon came out here. He was actually writing a paper about the limits of kind of the U.S. military and the UN in solving some of these issues. And because it was actually a relatively senior role in the Irish military. He was basically like, this is not going to go the way you think it is. And I was relatively idealistic at the time. I think this was like in around 2002 as the war was kind of building up. He's like, this isn't going to go well and you should not get involved in it. And I would imagine that because of, even though he and my dad had quite different political opinions, they actually would have agreed on this. So the advice I got from my uncle would have been the advice I got from my father. My family had moved here from Ireland, and we were here undocumented. We'd overstayed a tourist visa, and then we won a visa in a lottery program that Congressman Bruce Morrison had set up. I was born in Tralee in Kerry. It's a county in the southwest of Ireland that is known for its Republican roots, which in Ireland generally refers to folks that supported a free and independent Ireland, separate from Great Britain. My dad was involved in the IRA, and as a child, and this is like something where growing up, I didn't appreciate kind of all the details. That wasn't an uncommon thing for many in his generation that saw the types of abuses of the kind of the Catholics and folks up in the north, and felt compelled to serve and to get involved. And that was something that I think certainly was influencing me in my decision to kind of like serve in the military as well too in the United States, knowing that there's sometimes a call to service and something that you believed in that you should participate in. But another thing that that kind of resonated or stuck with me was the sense of like being in a country that was partially occupied by another country. I remember growing up, kind of one visceral memory of like being in bed and having a bunch of police officers come into my room, like I think in the early morning, and I search and rifle through my stuff looking for something, and they were clearly folks of the Irish state police, the special branch, who were coming and looking for stuff that was related to my dad's involvement in the Republican movement. And that was something that growing up with in that house and with other types of people coming into that house and the friends of my dad, who were all very passionate about the Republican movement itself. And so that experience certainly stuck with me as I was deployed. And I was basically doing the exact same thing, going into people's homes at night, going into kids' rooms and getting them out of bed, out of the house, so that we could basically search their house. And I literally was on the other side of that equation growing up in Ireland and seeing kind of the impact it had to our family for that kind of disruption. My dad died here in Massachusetts, and so we had a wake and a ceremony here, and then we flew his body back to Ireland, where we brought him back to the town he and all of us grew up in, and we had another wake and a ceremony there, and these are your typical Irish wakes where there's a lot of people. Traditionally, there's a procession from the church to the graveside. Usually the arrangement is that the folks that are involved, like from the Republican, from the IRA side, would kind of arrive like outside the church and help with walking the casket. And that's what was in that photo of us leaving from the church. Like, I remember thinking about, like, should I go in uniform? Like, was this appropriate for me to wear like a Marine uniform for a ceremony like this? My dad had come to my boot camp graduation, and we talked about weapons, and we bonded around some of those elements. And that service, like whether it was his service in Ireland or my service in the United States, was something that bound us. And I felt, and my brother as well too, felt compelled, and was the right thing, during his, in essence, military funeral, for us to be representing our military service as well too. That was often something that even some of my fellow Marines talked about. Like, what if the roles were reversed? What if, we were, 18, 19, 20-year-old Iraqi males, and the United States showed up, and we'd probably be doing a lot of the same things they were doing to us. We'd be fucking with us too, because we did show up, and there was folks who were just doing their job, and there was folks who kind of strayed from that at times. And but we were an attractive target, so to speak, and we were coming in with a lot of equipment and a lot of resources, and that's in essence the conflict my own father fought, and I think he would have seen it from the occupied perspective sooner than I would have, and more clearly, and would have probably forecasted that there would have been really no fast kind of solution to anything happening in Iraq. Yeah, if I was to have a conversation with my dad about Iraq, I think the first thing we'd probably talk about is that insurgencies work, and that like the thought that a large like military presence can be successful in any broad sense is unrealistic. And so I think we probably had a pretty good tactical conversation about like the things that we were doing and the tactics we had, and the tactics of the insurgency and what they were doing, because he's got a lot of direct experience with it, as do I, but from different perspectives. So I think we'd probably talk a bit about that, but probably land in the place that the odds are definitely stacked against, the occupying force, because, for all types of reasons, because we're not culturally kind of conversant. We don't know the lands, we're going to leave eventually. Like, we're not as invested, and time is not on our side. And there's a political angle to it. There's a perception angle. Whereas the man on the ground, so to speak, the insurgent, doesn't care about any of those things. They're fighting for, in many ways, like for their family, for their honor, and they're fueled by different things. And it's very hard to fight against that. Like, it's just a losing battle. And I think that our conversation would largely, I think, would be centered on that.